President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. Are you ready? Answer, yes, I am ready, Mr. President. President, thank you, Mr. Witness. And I would like to inform you that please give a little bit pause as in this morning, since there is interpretation in this court. And in the morning, I intervened because it had something to do with the technical issue. And now I advise you to give a little bit pause before you give your answers. And the floor is now given to the co-prosecutor to resume the questioning to this witness. You have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon. Just to make things a bit clearer, in relation, I'm going to continue putting questions this afternoon until 4 o'clock, and tomorrow morning the civil parties will question you, witness, until 9:45 in the morning. Now, first I'd like to get back to your role within the security center at Okan Seng, because I found the quote that I was looking for earlier. You said to us earlier that you were a member, and it was Tum who was Tassei's deputy. And in a written record of interview E3/5512, at question 4, the question is, please describe the structure of the Okan Seng security office. And you answered, 3 cadres supervised this office. Say was the chairman in overall charge. Chang was deputy chairman in charge of interrogation and preparation of prisoner documents. And Tum, the member, made the arrangements for the security personnel and guards. He died in 1979. End of quote. So I would like you simply to clarify this, because there's a contradiction between 2 of your statements. If you were the deputy chairman of this center, or if you were simply a member of the committee at the Okan Seng Security Center.
Answer, my actual role at Okan Seng Security Center was member, and Sai was the chairman and Tim was the deputy, as I said.
Fine. At the Okan Seng Security Center, did Tassaran, the head of Division 801, come to visit? Did he come at least once, or he never came?
Tassaran, after the establishment of Okan Seng Security Center, never came to visit that location.
And what about the leaders of Unit 806 that was in charge of logistics? And you mentioned Tasmin in that regard. SMEAN and possibly Tamun, MON. Did they come to this center, or did they come to the center on a regular basis to organize meetings there?
Answer. Those who were in charge of battalion 806 consisted of Simian. Simian used to come to attend the meeting at Organ Science Security Center.
And what were these meetings about at the security center with the staff at the center?
Sur quoi portait?
What were these meetings focused on?
Answer. The meetings were about the internal issues and monthly issues of our work, particularly in relation to security matter. In those meetings, we were told to prevent prisoners from fleeing the prison, said the witness.
And what would happen if a prisoner escaped? I don't know if it happened, and if prisoners were able to successfully escape from the prison, but did you tell them, or did they say, did he say that they would be punished?
Answer. At that security center, Mao, the prisoner, made an escape. He made an escape to the west of the security center. He wanted to go to Hui village. The villagers there arrested him and returned him to the security center.
And once Mao was caught, was he placed in the cell for special prisoners who were undergoing a special treatment because he had tried to escape?
Answer. After his arrest by villagers and after he had been returned to the security guards, Mao was then placed in a house where prisoners had their ankles shackled.
And just to finish with this line of questioning, did Mao survive the regime? Did he survive until the end of this center at the end of 1978, or did he die?
Answer. He did not die yet in 1978. He survived after 1978, and he also joined the fighting against the Vietnamese.
You spoke about the fact that Tasmin would come to the center for meetings, in particular regarding internal operations, and maybe his successor as well. So did the leaders of Unit 806 have the power of determining who had to be executed at the security center in Okanseng, or were these decisions made by Tasarun?
President, please hold on. There is an objection by the defense team for the accused. You have the floor now, Copper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I object to this question. Whatever happened to asking open questions first? I don't recall the witness saying anything yet about executions, whether there was a practice, and if yes, how was that implemented? So out of the blue, the prosecutor is now talking about executions, so I object to this question. He should move very slowly with this subject.
Mr. President, I will get back to this later. It will be easier than proceeding in steps right now. Well, more simply speaking, witness, did you ever go to Tasarun's place, whereas you were assigned to the Okanseng Security Center? And if that was the case, did you go to Tasarun's alone, or did you go there with Tasei?
Answer. After I came to work at Okanseng Security Office, to my recollection, I visited Tasarun's wife. I never went to his house to discuss the issue operated at Okanseng Security Office.
Now, regarding this point, I would like to read out to you two excerpts from your WRIs. The first is at E3/5607. It is answer 8. And you said the following, and I quote, "One day when I went to visit my wife at Bonsai, Sarun said to me personally that someone from Phnom Penh was going to work in my unit at Okanseng. Back then, my center had been moved from Banlung to Okanseng." End of quote, free translation. And I'm going to read directly the second answer as well. It is in WRI/5512 at question answer number 11. And you speak about a certain number of Jarais who had been arrested and detained at the security center. And you say the following.
I object to the reading out of the second excerpt. Actually, as a matter of fact, the first excerpt as well. There was another subject discussed. It seems that this prosecutor is again moving too quickly, going directly to whatever the witness has said in his WRIs. He should first ask open questions about the Jarai and ask open questions as to what was discussed at Sarun's house, rather than going straight to reading these excerpts.
Mr. President, I asked an open question regarding the meetings that the witness might have had with So Sarun. He said that there were no witness meetings, and I read out two excerpts in which he said that he met So Sarun back then. So I'm not going to speak about the Jarai in detail right now, but I simply want to quote what the witness said regarding a meeting with Ta So Sarun.
President, the objection is overruled. It is premature, since the chamber has not heard yet the purpose of question put by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor. You may resume your question since your question does not go deep into the matter of Jarai. So please reformulate your question.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the excerpt that I was going to read out, it is answer 11 of WRI E3/5512, and the answer is the following. There were more than 100 of those Jarai.
President, you said you did not go deep into the issue of Jarai, and the International Council for Mr. Nguyen Chia objected to the question that you did not put an open question, and I assume that you want to ask about Ta Sarun, but not about Jarai, and if that's so, it appears that you read to the witness in advance about Jarai issue, so this can be considered as the leading question. If it is so, it is not appropriate. So please reformulate your question, please.
Well, okay, then I will read out only one single sentence of this excerpt because I have to do so to demonstrate that the witness spoke about a meeting. You said the following: witness, back then Tasarun called me and say to meet him. I will stop there for the moment and I will get back to the Jarai later on. So I quoted two excerpts from your WRIs. One in which you said that So Saron had told you personally that someone from Phnom Penh was going to work in your unit. And the other regarding the Jarai, and you were asked, and Sai was also asked to go see him. So does this refresh your memory regarding the fact that you met Tassa Soren back then?
Witness, I want to make it clear about the meeting with Ta Sarun. I met him and he said that there was a person from Phnom Penh. And after I left his house, after I visited his wife, I met him. And at that time, he told me that there was an individual assigned from Phnom Penh to work with me.
Fine. So, regarding the excerpt that I read out to you, did you meet him a second time, this time in his offices in Bunsai with Tapsai?
Correct.
Monsieur le témoin.
Witness, aside from the O Kansang Security Office, in your sector, were there other security centers in the Northeast Zone, whether they be military security centers or whether they be civilian security centers at the sector, in Sector 101, Sector 102, Sector 104, or Sector 107? So do you know of any other re-education or security centers in those sectors?
Answer. There was a center located at Kachongke Mountain under the supervision of Division 801, and besides that security center, I have no idea.
was this center managed by Tabana? In any case, this is what you said in your WRI. Do you confirm that Tabana ran this center?
Answer: yes. That was managed by Tabana.
Et est-ce que vous savez pourquoi?
And do you know why this center was created at one point in time, and which kind of prisoners were detained there?
Answer: I do not know the reason that led to the establishment of that security center. All I know is that a center was established and located at Phnom Kachongke or Kachongke mountain under the command of Vanna, and those people who were detained there were sent to work in the field, and they were assigned to grow a vegetable in the garden, particularly sweet potato.
Est-ce que
And the prisoners from Okan Seng, which also was under the direction of Division 801, were those prisoners transferred to this other center that was led by Ta Vana next to Ta Changke mountain? Did this happen?
Answer: no transfer. No transfer of people from Okan Seng Security Center to the one managed by Tabana.
j'en viens au
Now I'd like to turn to the kind of prisoners who were detained at Okan Seng. And at Okan Seng, when you were there, were former Lon Nol soldiers ever detained there, or members or family members of these former servicemen from the Lon Nol army or from Lon Nol officials?
Answer: those who were detained at Okan Seng Security Center did not consist of former Lon Nol soldiers or former officials. They were workers from unions and cooperatives, as well as soldiers.
Et concernant les
And regarding the soldiers of Division 801 who were detained at Okan Seng, what were their ranks? Or they detained soldiers from that division up until which rank? And could you tell us if beyond a certain rank these soldiers were not brought to Okan Seng but were sent elsewhere?
Answer: those who were at Okan Seng Security Center, the highest rank was from battalion, was from company, and some were from platoon, and besides were combatants.
s'il y avait
And if there were people of higher rank than that, and do you know where they were taken to or where they were transferred to?
For those with higher ranks, after they were arrested, I do not know where they were sent to.
And who arrested the soldiers from Division 801 before being sent to Okanseng, and who brought them to Okanseng?
Answer. Those who were in charge of transferring those people to Okanseng, in fact, these people were sent from regiments, for example, a regiment 81, 83, and so on. And also they were sent from regiment 82.
Est-ce que vous connaissiez les motifs de...
Did you know the reasons why those soldiers were arrested? That is to say, the offenses they were accused of having committed. And can you give us examples of the kinds of offenses they may have committed or the reasons why they were arrested?
Answer. After I went to live in Okanseng Security Center, I encountered those who were sent from units under Division 801. Most of them were combatants. After their transfer, there was a accompanying letter saying that these combatants were lazy and stole stuff.
Est-ce qu'il y en avait certains qui avaient été accusés?
Were there any of them who had been accused of belonging to networks of traitors or opposing the line of the party?
A little while after I went to live there, and actually this morning I was asked whether there were any people coming from Phnom Penh to work there. In fact, people were sent from the division, that is from company level through the center.
Je suis pas sûr d'avoir compris votre réponse.
I am not sure I did understand your answer. Among those soldiers from Division 801, were there any soldiers who were arrested on the grounds that they had been opposed to the party line, or they were arrested because they had made criticisms or disapproved of instructions?
I did not mention the soldiers who were sent from their respective units because they opposed the instructions or workers who were sent from the union as they were accused of not respecting their leaders. Soldiers who were sent were those who were implicated in the responses from Phnom Penh.
D'accord. Donc,
Very well. So if I properly understand your answer, when you say that they were implicated in answers from Phnom Penh, you are referring to the fact that persons arrested and imprisoned in Phnom Penh had denounced them or implicated them in their confessions. Did I properly understand your testimony?
That is not quite right. Let me give an example. There is this person whose name was Peng Poi, and from the company level, and who was under the battalion of Lai Sarum. After Lai Sarum was arrested, Peng Poi was also arrested and sent to Au Conseil Security Center.
est-ce que cette personne faisait partie de...
Was that person part of Sai Sarin's network?
After he went through the interrogation, Peng Poi said he was under the supervision of Lai Sa.
Pour clarifier tout à fait ce...
To absolutely clarify that point, I'll read out to you what your former chief at Au Conseil said, and it is the record of interview of say number E3/405 in answer number 6. He said the following, and I quote free translation. This center was created to detain prisoners who are soldiers from Division 801. The latter were considered as indisciplined elements and were accused in the reports of confessions regarding denouncements. End of quote.
Vous d'accord avec Say pour dire...
Do you agree with Say that among the soldiers from Division 801 who were arrested were elements that were indisciplined?
Yes, that statement is correct. There were those people who were arrested and brought through the center, and they were accused of being indisciplined.
Et il a également dit donc...
And he also stated that the soldiers were implicated in records of confessions regarding denouncements. Do you agree with that? And would you like to react to that?
Yes, I agree to the statement that they were implicated by others.
Que les personnes arrêtées soient militaires.
Whether the persons arrested were soldiers or not belonging to Division 801, you said a while ago that there were also workers or members of rubber plantations or members of cooperatives? Be that as it may, were there any procedures for registering new arrivals at the Okanseng Detention Center?
When they were sent to the security center, the center would draw a list of their names, namely the units and the locations they were brought from.
Est-ce que vous avez parlé tout à l'heure de lettres?
A while ago, you spoke of letters accompanying them. Was there always a letter or a document in which the biography of the detainee was established, including the offenses they were accused of?
When they arrived, this comrade would question them. That is, initial questions as which units they were from and the reasons for their arrest.
Mais est-ce qu'en plus de ces questions,
But in addition to those initial questions, could they rely on written documents to explain why those persons had been arrested?
I do not have any proof to show that. Sometimes we did received a list of names of those who were brought in, for example, their name, their unit, and the reason for their arrest. Either they were lazy or they stole stuff. Another instance is that the person was indisciplined or who had trickery against the unit. These were the information that sometimes I received on the document.
et dans ces documents, est-il
And in those documents, did they never make mention of soldiers, particularly members of Division 801, who had been arrested because they were too close to the Vietnamese or too close to the CIA or the KGB?
While I was there, I was not shown any document illustrating this point. For example, whether the person A was an agent of a Vietnamese spy or a KGB or a CIA agent. No.
sous le régime du Kampuchea démocratique?
Under the Democratic Kampuchea regime, who were considered as the enemy gnawing from within, who were considered as the enemy gnawing from within. Were there any criteria whereby such persons could be identified.
At the O Consign Security Center, no detailed analysis was made against those people, whether they were Vietnamese spy or whether they were agent for CIA or a KGB. During the interrogation, if a prisoner confessed that he was a CIA agent or not, it will be recorded. However, most of the prisoners never admitted that they were spies for the Vietnamese, although the majority of them said they were CIA agents.
Merci.
Thank you. As regards the concept of the enemies, did you ever hear about or read instructions by Da Sarun regarding what had to be done as a matter of priority with enemies identified within Division 801? Do you recall any specific instructions regarding what had to be done with enemies identified within Division 801?
The term enemy refers to those who oppose the revolution, who oppose the party, and the term was used during the end of year workshop that I attended. Anything that interfered with the progress of the party or the socialist revolution would be considered enemy. Let me give you an example on the transplantation of rice seedlings. For example, you had to plant the seedlings for the height of 20 centimeters. And if you actually put it a bit deeper than that or above that, the person would be accused of opposing the revolution, and for that reason would be accused of being enemy. And that is what I heard from Ta So Sarun during the end of year workshop that I attended.
Et pourriez-vous nous dire quand
And can you tell us when you attended a workshop conducted by Taso Sarun?
I cannot recall the exact date. However, I can recall that since I came to work at O Consigned, I attended such a workshop for one time only.
Je voudrais revenir à la période où vous étiez.
I would like us to revisit the time when you were in charge of radio communications at the Division 801 General Staff. And I'll read out to you an excerpt of report number E3/1164 dated the 25th of November 1976. A report which Run, a member of the committee of the party of Division 801, sent to Senior Uncle 89. I'll read out an extract of that report and ask you whether you recognize the terms used by Tasarun as well as his instructions at the time. So, in this document, there's title number 4, titled A Number of Priority Measures, and among them are 5 command measures. In Khmer, it is on page 00052, 327, in French, 0053, 2754, and in English, 0051, 6711.
Lire les mesures de commandement dans ce rapport.
I'll read out the command measures in this report. Those who are suspected of being enemies must absolutely be arrested. As for those denounced by the enemy, the documents must be studied and request that they be arrested. Number 3, to impose a measure to remove and put into a group for surveillance anyone who traveled freely or repeatedly violated the disciplines after education. 4, any company or squad cadres who are inactive, deceitful, or lazy must absolutely be removed. 5, those who are affiliated to political tendency shall be gradually arrested. And further down, the goods shall be temporarily kept. Anyone who is resisting or inactive shall be removed and put into a group. Part of it was free translation. And at the end of the report, we find the following conclusion in the last page. This is a report of Committee 801 regarding enemy activities and measures as stated above, and we request that Uncle to make remarks and comments. We look forward to receiving the party's recommendations. End of quote.
Alors, concernant ces mesures,
Now, regarding these priority organizational measures proposed by Eun Son Sen, in order for him to make recommendations, are these measures relating to arrests, measures that were sent to all the cadres of Division 801? In other words, were you aware of those 5 command measures regarding possible arrests and other measures against the enemy?
Allow me to respond to that question. After I was reassigned to work at the All Concerned Security Center, and in reference to the 5 organizational measures that you just mentioned, I actually was not aware of that measures or of a report sent to Phnom Penh, because when I became to work at the All Concerned Security Center, I lost a contact in terms of radio communication.
pour autant, ces 5 mesures
That being the case, do the 5 measures reflect what you observed at Okan Seng, that is, to say that persons suspected as being enemies were denounced, or those who had political tendencies were those who were arrested within the forces of Division 801.
Those who were sent to Okonsan Security Center, some of them would fit into these 5 points. For example, those who were accused of being lazy, or those who did not implement or adhere to the disciplines, or those who were implicated by other people. Yes, some of them would fall into these 5 points.
Je voudrais vous poser une question spécifique.
I have a question for you, a specific question regarding rubber plantation workers who were referred to at the time as unionists. Why were there a number of unionists who were arrested? What were the reasons for such arrests? And can you tell us whether they were suspected of being members of a network?
Regarding the union workers who were sent to Okonsan Security Center, they were sent through the union chairperson named Tum. I met him, but not at my place, nor at his place. Actually, it was a long way while I was traveling to Bokao. He said that those workers were former elements and former workers of the previous regime. They were workers of the rubber plantation in the previous regime. And that they did not strictly adhere to Angkar's disciplines. For instance, if they felt hungry, they would stop working and went to find food. And they rarely adhere to the instructions. And he requested us to further question them.
Est-ce que ces arrestations dans les plantations d'EVA
Were those arrests in the rubber plantations not likely to affect economic production, particularly the production of rubber?
I cannot tell you about that. I do not know how it's going to affect the production of rubber.
Est-ce qu'il y avait une différence lorsque des militaires
Was there any difference when soldiers or civilians arrived at the Okang Seng Center? Did all persons arriving come shackled or handcuffed? or some of them were not shackled or handcuffed.
From what I saw regarding those people who were sent from the base or from the union, they were not tied. In fact, they were walked and they had their backpack or some at the back, or they actually carried their belonging on the head. As for the ethnic minorities, they also came with a basket that they carried along. As for soldiers, they were transported by truck, and when they got off the truck, I saw that they were not tied or cuffed. And there was an instance that one or two soldiers were tied, their hands were tied, and one of them was dumb, and I knew the person, so I went to untie his hands because I saw it swollen. In fact, Dom was a medic that I knew.
Once they were taken to Okanseng, were they placed in cells and were they shackled when they arrived? That is to say, shackles around their feet or other ways to lock them in that way.
When they were sent to Okanseng Security Center, they were not chained or shackled, except when they were brought in a special case. For example, that they were brought in by a truck, and on the truck there were armed guards. After they got off the truck, then they would be cuffed. So usually those who were escorted by armed soldiers would be cuffed after they got off the vehicle. Usually their hands would be untied, but they would be cuffed or they would be chained.
Fine, but in order to be clear about this, I was speaking about the moment when they would enter the buildings that were reserved for the prisoners at Okanseng. Once they would spend the first night in those buildings, were they chained or were they tied?
Answer, as I have just told, on the first night they were not chained, except only one prisoner, as I indicated for the chamber, because that prisoner was, in fact, the armed soldiers was cautious to the prisoner toy, pain toy.
Monsieur le témoin, nous n'avons pas entendu.
Witness, we didn't hear the end of your answer, so could you please repeat your answer?
Answer. Let me make a clarification on this point. When those people were sent from unions or from military units, workers from unions were not tied to any strings. They were walked by some others, and then these people were delivered to the security center. As for soldiers, they were brought by trucks or vehicles, and they were in two different categories. So one category was from Bò Cao, and another group of soldiers were with the patients or the wounded soldiers, and most of them were not tied. I mean those who were on the trucks. And after they arrived at the security center, there was a prisoner paying poi. He was part of the company. On the first night, he was chained. The guards were cautious. And as I said, there were one or two soldiers accompanied those prisoners on the trucks, and then they were put in cells of the security center.
Bon.
Fine, I'm going to try to be quick about this. I simply would like to read out what a former prisoner, an ordinary former prisoner at Okanseng, who was a former worker in the rubber plantations and who was arrested in 1978, and I'd like to read out to you what he said. He said that even people who were working during the day were chained at night. And he also speaks about handcuffs or that were given to him at least for a certain while when he arrived. So this is witness K-H-O-E-M. This is E37684 WRI, in French on page 3, in English on page 3, and in Khmer 00221753. And this is what he says regarding his arrival at Okanseng, and also about what happened to him afterwards. I was handcuffed around my ankles in a cell for 1 month before being released to go work at clearing and picking potatoes and corn with my hands. Even though there were knives, we weren't given any. This work gave blisters on my hands, but I didn't dare say so. While I was working, there were two soldiers watching over us, and they were heavily armed. And the last sentence, which I quote, "At night, the soldiers would bring the prisoners back into the units and chain them up again." Free translation, end of quote. So what is your reaction to this excerpt? This is a person who says that he was chained for 1 month before he was able to start working, and who also says that the prisoners were chained at night after they came back from work.
Answer. Regarding the answer of Tapo, I know Tapo. I can recall this individual after hearing his name. He was a man in charge of sawing wood. I was close to him at the time. I agreed to his answer or testimony that at first his ankle was chained, later on, after his interrogation, nothing was noticeable or was significant in relation to his issue. So later on, he was released to work as normal as others workers.
Quelques questions.
A few quick questions on sanitation and on the detention conditions. You spoke about the fact that the buildings at Okansang were made out of bamboo and that they had thatched roofs. So were the cells waterproof? Or would the roofs cave in when it rained very hard? So does that mean that sometimes it would rain inside the cells, in fact?
Answer. There was good roof and the bamboo wall. But actually, it could not prevent the cool air or the heat sun from going through that wall. And those people make fire within the hall. Those who went to work outside, some of them carry woods, and those woods were used to make fire to warm themselves at night time. Some woods were placed in the kitchen hall. That location was near the stream or Okansang River, so it was quite cold.
Est-ce qu'il y avait des...
Were there insects inside the cells? And more generally speaking, can you describe the sanitation conditions within the cells?
Answer. Within those cells, many mosquitoes. No mosquito nets for prisoners at night time.
Regarding the sanitation conditions, can you tell us if all prisoners had access to water when they wanted to, and if they could wash, or if they had access to latrines during the day as well as during the night?
Answer. Regarding the use of water at Okansang Security Center, there was no strict rule for prisoners. At night time, they were told to urinate into the bamboo tube. Each of them got one bamboo tube. And for bathing, after they returned from work from the plantation or the gardens, they bathe themselves at the stream or a river by themselves. And at night time, they had drinking water in the bamboo tube to drink. In Ratnagiri, plenty of bamboo tubes were available. So all of them had bamboo tubes. The bamboo tubes were used to put the water in, and for some prisoners who had no water in the bamboo tubes, they would share with other prisoners who had the water in those bamboo tubes. President, it is now break time. The chamber will take a short break from now until 3 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Witness and the UT Council. It is now a break time. The chamber will take a short break from now until 3 p.m. So please be present again before 3 p.m. to be ready for the testimony. Do you understand, Mr. Witness? Witness? Yes, I do, Mr. President. President, the court is now in recess.